Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask AdFed, where we're connecting student questions with expert answers. My name is John Allen and I'm sitting here with Kevin from JW Morton Associates. And I received a question from Caleb at Kirkwood Community College, and he asks, how have you seen the industry change? What do you think the future holds for the graphic design industry? And so I thought, Kevin, you've been in the industry for a while, you've seen some things change. So I thought I'd just open this up to you and see what you think.
Sure. Well, I started as in the ad business in 1978. The Mac was introduced 6 years later, and it was a couple of years before they were even a useful tool for advertising and design. So as far as the changes go, computers have done a lot as far as the process of what we do for design and production, especially on the production end. Speeds things up, makes things a lot more accurate. On the other hand, I heard somebody say at one point, desktop publishing computers will allow a lot of people to do a lot of really bad design really fast.
Right,
so
yeah.
You still have to have a good idea to start with, no matter what your tools are that you're using to produce with. Some of the changes in the industry, clearly, there's been a shift away from print to web and interactive and apps and such.
Right.
So that's been a profound change. And when I think about content, we're always conscious from the writer's standpoint of the things that help you on the internet websites like search engine optimization and stuff like that. So I kind of feel like on one hand, it's really allowed us to be a lot more experimental and work a lot quicker. But on the other hand, we're a little more handcuffed by the technology, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting because you had to work a little slower, but at the same time you maybe had better ideas and they were more thought out. But now you can work a little quicker, but sometimes you take shortcuts and cut corners that maybe isn't so good in the end.
It's easy to take shortcuts or cut corners. It's also, I think it's easy to kind of lean on the software to provide you an easy out for a design.
Right.
As opposed to thinking through the creative ahead of time and then figure out how to make the computer or the software do what you want it to do, as opposed to starting with just the limitations of the design tools that you have.
I was just even thinking about like a typeface, for example. I mean, now you've got like thousands of typefaces that you can just kind of scroll down through and select one and say, oh, I'm going to go with that. But you may not know the typeface very well. You may not know the characteristics of the typeface.
Yeah.
At the time when you were working in the 70s or the 80s, like, did you find the limitation of typefaces to give you more advantages when designing?
I think when we had fewer fonts to work with, I felt like I wished I had more to work with because I always wanted to explore different options and new ideas. But now that there's so many, it's almost like I fall back on the ones that I'm most familiar with and most comfortable with, and that I just feel are better fonts than some of the other stuff. There's some really great new stuff out there, and it's fun to play with. But when it gets down to business, there's some stuff you need your fonts to be able to do, and a lot of the new fonts don't have all the ligatures and a lot of the other characters that the more well-developed font families have.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Earlier you were speaking about how you still need to have a good idea. Speaking to a student, how would you advise them to go about getting to the good idea? How do you coach them on that?
Well, regardless of how you're going to execute it or the medium, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what's the purpose of the project I'm working on right now? Who's it talking to, and what message do you want it to take? And from there, you've got a place to start. Because if you don't know your audience and you don't understand the product or the message, then you don't have any business working on the project. So you need to understand those things. And then the way I approach it is I try to understand everything as well as I can, and I just start with a pencil and a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the most natural way to get ideas started. And sometimes I'll just have to put it down and do something else, because every now and then your brain just needs a trigger from something else to, if you have like what a writer would call writer's block, you can actually get that with design, and you just kind of get stuck. So you just put something down, pick up something else for a while, and then it kind of starts getting fresh again.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.